Hey everybody, BionicDance here. So, yesterday was just my best day ever. Well, not really. See, I had just changed out the wheels on my rollerblades. You can see how worn down these are, right? This one used to be about as tall as, well, more than, needless to say, they're worn down. So I just changed out my rollerblade wheels, and it seemed, appropriate to go test them out. It was a very nice day outside. It seemed, hey, let's go for a ride. But, I'd gotten to turnaround point B. I have 4 turnaround points on the Burke-Gilman Trail, which is a really nice place to go rollerblading or biking or jogging or whatever here in Seattle. But I was turning around at turnaround point B because I'd been sick for a couple of days and my endurance was not that great, and I figured, what the hell, let's just go home, because otherwise I was going to be miserable trying to push myself too hard. So I turn around and I'm on my way back, and I don't know what the hell I hit. There was a manhole cover nearby, or it might have been an extra large piece of grit, but whatever it was, it stopped my blades cold, which doesn't normally happen. If you hit something, sure, there's a stumble, but rarely do you just stop as if you've hit some immovable object. And needless to say, I pitched forward from the momentum. Now, when you're in kind of a crisis situation, your time sense can kind of stretch. Well, for a moment I thought I might be able to recover, but about halfway through I'm like, no, you're going down like a drunken prom date. So I try to get my wrist pads in front of me. My wrist pads make sure that my wrists can't tweak, in front of my face so that I don't hurt that. And I hit the ground. Now, I don't know if my elbow pad shifted or if it caught on the ground and momentum carried it back or whatever, but I got, it's a superficial scrape, but a large one right here. And so that's not a lot of fun. But also I landed really hard on my left hip. Now, as much as I just sang the praises of the Burke-Gilman Trail, there's bits of it that are really in the middle of nowhere. You've got Lake Washington and condos on one side, and screaming wilderness on the other, and you are nowhere near an actual road, right? So I really didn't know what to do. It's not like I could really just, catch a bus somewhere, because I ride the bus. I don't have my own vehicle. And I didn't think that my problem, like what had just happened to me, was severe enough for 911, so I'm not about to call an ambulance for what might just be a scrape and a bruise. So I get up after, a couple of minutes, because honestly that hurt, and I start hobbling towards, what I hope is going to be the next road. Because, like I say, there are stretches of this trail that where it's just, you don't get anywhere near an actual civilized intersection for ages. And so I didn't, I didn't really know how I was going to get to like an emergency room. Because like I say, I didn't feel like I needed 911, but I did kind of feel like I needed medical treatment. So I get passed by a lot of bicyclists, I'm obviously limping, I'm making a grimace face, and there's an obvious scrape right here. I'm in distress, but a lot of people just go burning by without offering to help at all, until this rather nice couple on one of those 2-seater bicycles decided, a tandem, that's what it's called, I knew there was a word for that, they stop and say, look, there's an intersection just ahead, we can get our car, would you like a ride somewhere? And thank you so much for these people. They were very, very nice, and when I thanked them, they said pay it forward, so I'll have to find some way to do someone a good deed. But in any case, they got me to the University of Washington Medical Center's emergency room, which is actually pretty close to where I would have caught the bus home anyway, so that's pretty nice. But I get into the ER, and they check me in pretty quickly, but then it takes forever for anyone to actually see me. I'm kind of worried about this scrape. Superficial as it was, I felt like it needed disinfecting, And so eventually they get someone in to check me out. And they checked out my leg, and they're like, yeah, that could potentially be a break. We'd better get you into the x-ray, right? So after a really long time of waiting, because apparently they're very backed up, they get me into the x-ray room. And they take a couple of pictures. They get me back into my room, and someone finally shows up to disinfect this. And then once the x-rays come back, they say, look, we're not sure. Some people are looking at it and thinking there's an anomaly on there that could be a break. And then there's those who think, nah, maybe not. But apparently it was, I mean, it's not like, bone snapped in half. It was more a matter of there might be a fracture up near the joint or something. And those are apparently pretty nasty, because it's like there's a crack in the bone, but it's not an actual like snapped in half kind of break. And unfortunately, a break like that, like the one they're describing, would have required surgery. Now, I hadn't had a meal since 11 a.m. It's now like, 3-ish or something? And if it required surgery, well, it would be emergency surgery, so I'm all of a sudden not allowed to eat. So I'm getting hungrier and hungrier, and I'm realizing, oh fuck, if I'm going to be here that long, somebody needs to feed my cat. So I'm like all of a sudden making frantic phone calls to my building manager and other people saying, hey, I need some help. And then I realized that my anti-seizure meds are at home. What am I going to do? I mean, I've got this epileptic condition. If I don't have my anti-seizure meds, well, I'm pretty fucked. So, fortunately, I am in a hospital, so they were able to get me a dose of what I needed. But, wow, that was a little scary for a minute. And so then they're like, well, since we can't tell from an x-ray, we're going to need to get an MRI of your hip. And I was like, okay, I've had an MRI before. That's how they detected the blood vessel going wonky in my head meats that's causing the epilepsy. So I'm like, okay, I can do an MRI. How long is that going to take? They go, we don't know. One of our MRI machines is down, and all of a sudden we're swamped with people who need it, whose cases are more severe than yours. Things like strokes and stuff. So I'm like, oh, geez, okay, great. So here I am, not allowed to eat, and waiting and waiting and waiting, getting constantly bumped for the MRI machine. I mean, I can understand why they're doing it, but that doesn't make it any more pleasant for me. So it's not until like 10-ish, maybe it was 10:30, I don't remember, but it was really, 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 really late at night at this point, when they finally get me into the MRI machine. They check it out, and then I get back to my room, and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting for the results. And finally they say, all right, look, it's probably not that bad. Go ahead and eat. We don't care. And so I finally get to have a meal after like almost 12 hours of not eating, which, kind of sucks. And then the MRI results come back, and it turns out, no, there's not a fracture. It's just a very, very, very deep bruise. They used the word contusion. But needless to say, they send me home with crutches, which I don't think I need, actually. When I woke up this morning, I was feeling a lot better. It still hurts. I'm still limping, but it's not nearly as bad as it was yesterday. So that's all right. But of course, when they sent me home, true to form, like the rest of the day's been going, the cab company, because the buses weren't running at this point. It was after midnight when they decide that I get to go home. The buses aren't running anymore. So they send me home in a cab. But true to form, the way the rest of the day's going, the cab company is suddenly swamped. On a Wednesday after midnight. What the fuck is going on in Seattle that requires cabs at Wednesday, after midnight on a Wednesday? The cab company's swamped and can't get there for like a half a frickin' hour. And so, I finally get home, and I get to bed. Awakened this morning. Maybe you can hear it by construction, because people are doing construction on my building right now. So, yeah. My world has been really, really happy lately. Best day ever. Just saying. So, yeah. Anyway, I figured I'd make this video about it because for some reason people like to know what's going on in my personal life as well as hearing my rants against religion, so whatever. Thanks, I guess. I'm flattered. Anyway, until next time, this is BionicDance, signing off. Please take the time to rate this video. And hey, if you dig what I do, subscribe. And please visit my Zazzle store, where you'll find all kinds of BionicDance merchandise. Not rating and subscribing has been found to cause obesity, acne, and male pattern baldness in laboratory rats.